Beat Everyone is proud to be supported by Andrews Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center, home to the Alabama Crimson Tide team doctors and a global leader in sports medicine, research, and injury prevention. We're just a few days away from the college football playoff opening round game against Oklahoma. Alabama will travel out to Norman. Welcome to Beat Everyone. I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com. And we got the Oklahoma point of view earlier this week. Now we try to get our minds right with Alabama. And there's nobody who's had a better view of Alabama's season this year than our guest, and also has unique insight and experience when it comes to what the team will do on Friday. He's former Alabama quarterback, current Crimson Tide Sports Network color analyst, Tyler Watts. Tyler, welcome. So cool to have you.
Hey, thank y'all for having me on this morning.
Hey, so Tyler, I don't know if you agree with this. I think the biggest storyline of the Alabama season has been Ty Simpson. He was obviously the biggest question mark going into the year. He and everybody else obviously struggled in the season opener in Tallahassee against Florida State. Then he rattles off an insane streak. He looks like the best quarterback in the country, Heisman favorite, future first-round draft pick. And we know that during this final stretch of the regular season and obviously the SEC championship, he looks human again. Injuries around him. He's a little banged up. No balance with the run game, shaky pass protection. But Tyler, you played this position. You've watched him all year. What's your assessment of Ty Simpson's season up to this point?
Look, I think a lot is being asked of Ty, and unfairly, quite honestly. And you hit the high point right there. When you're, I'm not going to say one-dimensional, because Alabama does run the football, but when you're not a traditional run the ball 30, 40 times a game, then that puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback to be perfect in what he's being asked to do. And Ty Simpson has a huge burden on his shoulders every single play. You see them break the huddle. They get to the line of scrimmage. Everyone fusses about the play clock running out. Why don't we just run a play, call a play and run it? Well, so much is dependent on that play being perfect and not having a negative. He's tasked with making sure the protection's right, making sure he understands what the defense is doing. And now defenses are so complicated. They're going to give you a look, then they're going to change the look based on what you do, based on your motion. Then you have to change your protection once again. Next thing you know, they're snapping the ball, similar to how they do in the NFL, with a couple of seconds on the play clock. And unfortunately, we've had to burn a lot of timeouts on opening possessions in the first quarter, second quarter as a result of that. But it all stems back to the fact that that's your identity as an offense. You were so dependent on him doing everything correct pre-snap, and you hadn't gotten to how the play unfolds. And unfortunately, if he is not clipping at a 70% completion rate and hitting on 80% of these third down conversion opportunities with perfect passes, then the offense has struggled a hair as a result of that. And it all stems back from what you just said, a lack of, hey, we're not quite as balanced as we want to be. We try to run the football, but we're not picking up 4 and 5 yards a clip running the ball. We're picking up 1 or 2, but you have to stay consistent with it. So a lot's being asked of him, and it's probably unfair to say that he's up and down. Maybe he's just not Superman all the time is probably a better way to say it, because when he plays at his peak and he is sharp as attack, he understands what the defense is doing and how it's unfolding. He's anticipating where to go with the football. He is better than anybody else in the country. But when the picture changes a little bit, he becomes just a good quarterback, not necessarily a superstar. But I'm going to guarantee you this right now, he's still better than most of them out there.
That brings us to now, right? So what are your expectations for Ty on Friday? I mean, it seems the team kind of goes as he goes. Is he capable of finding that midseason form again? Like, is Brent Venables kind of a tricky matchup for his tendencies and what he does so well against other teams? What do you think Ty needs to do to help the team beat Oklahoma on Friday?
Well, let's break that down. So the scheme is one part of it, and Brent Venables is as good as anybody when it comes to scheme. But never underestimate the dudes that are out there on the field. And that's really what separates Oklahoma from a lot of defenses across the country. Now, Alabama has faced some really good ones down the stretch here, and it started with Oklahoma. Then you play against Auburn, you play against Georgia here 2 weeks ago. Those are all top 5, top 10 defenses in the country from a personnel standpoint, how they attack. But there are a lot of issues that this Oklahoma defense presents with their penetration, how quick they are, how fast they rally to the football. So you really don't have an answer as to how you can go out and attack them consistently and going to have success. It just comes down to, can your guys get a hat on a hat move them a little bit out of the way, maybe take advantage of some of these twists and games that they're playing up front that they'll potentially get out of position. Um, but you have to just stick with the plan, whatever that plan is. Don't get rattled if you have to punt the ball away. Um, but we have seen this Alabama offense rack up over 400 yards against this Oklahoma defense. So we know that it's within us. It just comes down to protection up front. Can you consistently run the football, stay true to it, try to be as balanced as possible, win the time of possession game? I think that those are important things in this type of contest. And ultimately, similar to last time, it comes down to, do you turn the football over or not? Sacks are okay. Throwing the football is okay. Strip sacks are not okay. Interceptions are not okay.
Great point. Obviously, the difference in the last game in Tuscaloosa. Tyler, you had a unique career where you're the first couple of years. I mean, you were sharing reps with a teammate at your position. You and Andrew Zhao were essentially a combo QB1. But from the fan perspective, we've heard people say that if Ty doesn't have it, if he's too banged up, if Alabama isn't executing, why doesn't Kalen DeBoer make a change and let Austin Mack or Keelan Russell give it a shot? I mean, they wondered the same about Jalen Milroe at Oklahoma last year when Alabama really struggled. So he didn't have it that night. So why not put in backup Ty Simpson? Do you see that as a possibility, or is that an unrealistic expectation people might have?
Well, you never want to say that it's completely implausible. Um, it's potentially, but I think that it's a worst case scenario where everything is going so bad, and it is squarely because he's scared to pull the trigger. He's making the wrong decisions. He's not seeing things correctly. That hadn't been the case. Yeah, he might throw some interceptions, but the ball's going to the right place, or maybe it just got away from him. That's no reason to pull a quarterback. And then I don't care who you had out there on the field against Georgia with the amount of pressure that Ty Simpson faced, no one was going to have a ton of success. And it's like, all right, and then we finally were able to block them, and then we had some drops. We had a block punt that put us behind the eight ball. So there's a lot of different things that were going on that ultimately everyone says, well, that's the quarterback's fault. No, it's not the quarterback's fault. It's just you got to play. You got 60 plays, hopefully, that you're going to have over the course of a game. And he's the guy you want out there under center or in shotgun taking those snaps as opposed to rotating guys around. Look, if there was a better option, he would be out there on the field. We've seen that across the board at every other position to where if they feel that you've put in the work, that they can trust you, you can get the job done, you're going to get playing time. Ty Simpson's he's like you just mentioned it, man. I mean, he's potentially a first round draft pick. You're not going to put that guy on the bench. He is your best option. He's your best way to victory, and you're going to ride him regardless of the situation because he's been through the battle. And if things go sour, they go wrong, you know that you can count on him to bounce back and get back in the saddle and get after it again.
People just get antsy. They get so high strung, and
Sure.
the anxiety is so high that they forget that this is the guy who got you to the playoff. He's a big reason why you're even in the spot that you're in. So Oklahoma is one of the few teams who have a winning record against Alabama historically. Kalen DeBoer is obviously 0-2 against them so far, with a loss last year in Norman, the 2-point loss in Tuscaloosa a few weeks ago. Tyler, I don't mean to bring up any sore subjects with you, but like I said, you've got unique insight into this because you played in an absolute battle back in 2002. You guys fell just short, but you nearly engineered an incredible comeback and a monster game on the road. Part of that 10-win season that y'all had under Dennis Franchione. It was really back and forth, big swings, explosive plays. What do you remember about that game when you look back?
How good our special teams were, quite honestly. They are what got us back in that football game. I did just enough to get us beat by 30, but the special teams and the defense played incredible and kept clawing, and we found enough offense late in the second half to take the lead. And that's still one of my biggest nightmares was that particular football game. It still haunts me how it ended, but it's a tough environment to play in, and it's even tougher now. They've added some seats. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere. There's no doubt about that, but none of that matters, man. I mean, as far as this Friday night goes, none of that matters. I had a great time playing at Alabama, enjoyed it, loved my teammates, had a great opportunity to build for my future and success. And these guys out there this Friday night, they have a lot laying on the line, and everything's still in front of them. They got a bad defeat versus Georgia in the SEC championship. You start breaking that game down, the score was not indicative of how well the defense played, and how that game really unfolded. They dominated us defensively. I mean, we couldn't do anything offensively, but there was still enough when you go back and watch it to you're like, hey, we should have made that play, could have made that play. And if we do, things are a little bit different. Not saying you win, but it's much more competitive. So you flush all that in the past and you focus on what does it take to win now? And you kind of have the recipe. You understand that when you're doing your job and you're doing it correctly across the board, that you're a pretty doggone good football team. And I don't anticipate this one being any different. It's probably going to be a one possession game, one way or the other. You know, can we secure the football? Um, to me, the biggest concern in this one, quite honestly, I think our defense is going to play great. Is how do we stack up in special teams? Um, their punter outkicks us probably by 10, 15 yards per punt. Their field goal kicker is money inside of 55 yards. So you think about it, you exchange 2 or 3 punts, all of a sudden they pick up 20 or 30 yards, they're in scoring position. So that's a huge concern. The offense has got to be able to play around midfield in order for us to have success, in my opinion.
Well, they won the special teams battle, that's for sure, in Tuscaloosa. So hopefully Alabama can turn things around, keep the ball without coughing it up. Tyler, fans know your work really well as a color commentator in the booth with Chris Stewart, following the likes of John Parker Wilson, Phil Savage, Ken Stabler. What's the view been like working with Chris and watching games through that lens as an analyst?
Sure. Well, I was honored that first year to be able to work with Eli and really enjoyed working the home games with him. But me and Chris have gone back almost 20 years of working either high school games together or CSS games, pay-per-view games. So we have a lot of chemistry working back. And look, and in my opinion, he is the best in the industry as far as how smooth he is, how he fills space. He sets you up. He gives you time to talk. It kind of builds on what you have to say. So he's been awesome. And we got Roger Hoover up there as well, and then Corey Reamer down the sideline who adds a lot as well from a defensive perspective. So listen, we're having a great time in the booth. It's been a lot of fun this season calling these guys. They've given us a lot of excitement over the course of the year. And it's just been a lot of fun, and enjoyed this ride over the last couple of years that I've had an opportunity to be a part of.
Well, we always love the videos that they share from like big plays from Alabama wins. There's a camera in that booth. How aware are you of that, knowing some of the big moments might spread like wildfire on social media? It looks like you guys have a good time in there.
It's the most embarrassing part of every Monday morning when they release that for me to realize, I've always kind of prided myself on being a dude of composure, kind of staying within the moment, not losing your crap, so to speak, not getting too excited. But there are certain games throughout the course of the year that, as a former player and as an Alabama fan, just mean a little bit more, right? And, your big SEC games, your Auburns, your Tennessee, you're going to lose it without even understanding it. And yeah, I'm completely oblivious to the fact that that stupid camera is in there capturing everything that I do.
That just means you're a pro, man. If you don't even know it's there and you're doing your job, that means you just got laser focused. That's the experience of being a quarterback at a high level, I think.
Or not smart enough to be aware of what my surroundings are.
Hey, Tyler, I want to ask you a few questions about your time in Tuscaloosa under center. I mentioned splitting reps with Andrew Zal. You're a part of what many perceive as a competitive quarterback battle. We've seen them throughout the years here with Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, Blake Sims, Jake Coker, even this last offseason with the guys under DeBoer and Ryan Grubb. What are those battles like, actually being in one? Like, how do you balance being a teammate and a competitor when you want to be the guy, but you also want to support the guy next to you and help your team win?
Well, first of all, congratulations to Andrew for getting opportunity to be on the field coaching at Sanford. I'm super proud of what he's been able to accomplish post in his post playing career. He's done an outstanding job at Clemson and as a head coach here in high school for years, and now getting an opportunity at Sanford to be on the field. That's awesome. Super proud of him. I say this all the time. It takes two special people to be able to deal with what me and Andrew did. And I have the utmost respect for how he handled it. He never allowed, that could have been a bad situation. And on most teams, it would have divided the locker room when you didn't have a coaching staff that could really pull the trigger one way or the other. And back then, you couldn't transfer, so there was no options really, unless you wanted to lose a year of eligibility. So he was a pro in how he handled it. He was super mature, more mature probably than most people out there. But to get back to your question, man, it was tough on both of us because both wanted to play. We both felt that we were the better option. We both felt that us being on the field gave us the best chance to win. But he was a great competitor, and he really pushed you in practice. Obviously, he never allowed you to relax on where you were in your development because he was always grinding. So you always had to grind, and that kind of made both of us better. Um, but he handled everything with grace, and even his senior year, when I was named the starter, he had been the starter for 2 or 3 years, and it's his last year. He doesn't get named starter. He sits on the bench all season long. He never said a word. He never said anything to any other players. He never allowed that to be an issue or a problem. And when he got his opportunity versus Mississippi State, I tore my groin and couldn't play. He came in, we won that game. Then he goes down to Auburn. He plays an outstanding game, gets a Daniel Moore of him. He was the leader on that football team, even though he wasn't on the field. Everyone respected him for how he handled himself. And I loved watching him on that little run um, go on and finish out his career on a high note. That was awesome. And it all stems back, though, to his character and the fact that I respected who he was as a person. And it was super easy to pull for him as a result of that.
That's awesome to hear. I mean, I think people think that you guys are just at odds when you're competing for positions like that, and you forget they're teammates, they're friends. You wonder if y'all are close. You wonder if y'all are at arm's length because of the competition. And I think people just struggle to understand how that dynamic works unless you're actually in it, which so many of us are not.
Hey, listen, in all transparency, we struggle with it too at times. I'm not gonna lie, because we both wanted to be the guy. But I think it helped both of us develop and mature as a result of having to deal with that, because it was not an easy situation.
Yeah, and it's never easy too when college football coaches come and go. And you played for a couple of head coaches at Alabama. What do you remember about Mike DuBose when you decided that you wanted to play for his Alabama program at the time?
Look, I wanted to play at Alabama,
Mhm.
and I got recruited by Coach Stallings. And then when he left, my junior year of high school, got picked up. And look, and this is what's funny. That was a 3-8 team, I think, in '97. Bruce Arians is your coordinator on the offensive side. You had all the pieces in place. It just didn't work out. But it was the game was much different back then. It was I formation, 11 personnel. We're going to run a tight end. We're going to run the ball 80% of the time. If you complete 55% of your passes, you're a pretty good quarterback, because everything was pushed down the field because you only threw it when you had to. But you control the line of scrimmage. That's where the game was won. That's where you spent all your time focused on, was being the more physical football team. And look, 98 was kind of roller coaster. Got redshirted. 99 got an opportunity to play a little bit. We won the SEC championship game. And then obviously in 2000, we had all the talent in the world. We just couldn't put it together, and it went off the rails quick. So yeah, it was a turbulent time that Alabama had not experienced over the last 17, 18 years while Coach Saban was there. But there for a stretch of 15 years or so, or 10 years, I guess, it was a tough deal for everyone who went through that program.
Yeah, and then obviously DeBose leaves and Franchione comes from TCU. How different was his approach? Like, what was your relationship like with him?
Everyone criticizes Coach Franchione for the 2 years that he was there and how he left. It was a tough situation for him as well. I don't know if anybody remembers, we were on sanction. We lost a lot of scholarships, couldn't go to a bowl game. And he felt that the program was really going to have a downward trend over the next couple of years, which it did under Coach Shula. And he just didn't. He wasn't equipped to be able to handle that. He didn't think that the Alabama fan base would be understanding of that. From a personal standpoint, I loved him. I thought he was great for our program at the time. He was exactly what we needed. We needed structure. We needed discipline. We needed a vision of where we were going. And he provided all those things. He was extremely organized. You understood exactly what was expected of you. He worked your tail off, and we had great cohesion, similar to how we did in '99 in the 2 years that he was there. And, even my senior year in 2002, if we weren't on probation, we'd have played in the SEC championship game. We would have had a rematch versus Georgia. And, I know we played like crap versus Auburn, but we felt we were good enough to win the conference that year. So he was good for us at the time, but like everything in life, you look back on it years later and you understand, well, if this doesn't happen and this doesn't happen, then in 2007, Coach Saban doesn't come to Tuscaloosa, so it all worked out. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
yeah, I bet. Well, I just ask you this because of this insane coaching carousel that we've seen and that is still going, and that Alabama has just been kind of pulled into. And I'll ask you about DeBoer in just a few minutes. But after your final year at Alabama, obviously Franchione, he left to coach Texas A&M, as you just mentioned. Y'all play at Hawaii on November 30th, and just a few days later, he takes the A&M job. How do you remember that moment around the program? Can you kind of take us like behind closed doors? I know that you had just finished your career at Alabama, but what do you remember specifically about when you
Yeah,
heard
sure. And honestly, my perspective was much different than had I been a junior still on the football team in the middle of all of it. Didn't affect me as much, but I remember probably like everybody else on the team, you pull into Birmingham or Tuscaloosa at 4 a.m. coming back from Hawaii, you immediately go to sleep and you wake up, and I go in to have treatment or something at 10 or 11 o'clock that day and turn on the news, he's already on a plane gone. And it was a shock because he was lax. He didn't coach us quite the same that Auburn week, in my opinion. Looking back on it, he wasn't as tough and demanding as what he had been throughout the course of the year. But versus Hawaii, I remember we were watching film the night before. He got so pissed, ticked off, ticked off at somebody for not paying attention. He pulled the film out, threw it up against the wall. I mean, it's like one of them, over dramatic Hollywood scenes in a football locker room where the coach flips over the Gatorade jug. He lost it. And that was the intensity that we were accustomed to. So it was kind of a shock when you turn on the news and you find out that he's gone, because we thought he was bought into what we were doing. We had bought into what he had said, but it didn't work out. And I remember the disappointment though on the players. Now Brody was happy. Brody Croy was happy because he didn't want to run the option,
Right.
and he wanted to throw the football. So he was fired up about the change of philosophy that was going to take place, which was kind of funny. But I remember looking back on guys like Shaud Williams, outstanding career, incredible player, great person, still coaching, but just he'd gone to Texas Tech. He came to Alabama, had to sit out a year. He practiced but didn't play. And then, man, he was incredible on the field. And now he has to go through 3 coaches in a 2-year period. That's tough on a young player aspiring to get to the next level. How are you going to be developed? And it was tough on those guys.
That's fascinating. And related to that, and we just got a couple more for you here, Tyler. Kalen DeBoer, he's made a couple of public statements now reaffirming his commitment to Alabama after his name was brought up for openings at Penn State and Michigan. Seemingly any job that opens up, it sounds like he's the top candidate for it. And he said he will be the Alabama coach next year. He's happy here. He's embracing the challenge, obviously, of following Saban and building something himself and in his image. But you got to think that chatter makes its way to the locker room. And as somebody who lived through coaching changes and rumors and speculation like this, how does it reach you? And how do you power through it? Or can you even focus on football when it's happening?
I think that these players are better equipped to deal with everything going on in the world than we ever were. From the simple standpoint, they deal with it on a daily basis. They understand what everybody is saying and thinking and projecting. And the older I get, the less I believe anything. And I'm just curious if these players are kind of similar to where they think everything's a lie, or is it really even a person that's posting this? They're inundated with it every single day. I think that they have the ability to kind of compartmentalize probably better than anyone in the past has, um, just because they're hammered so much with it. And it's about what's said between. It's that day, that moment that you're focused on. What's said in that team meeting room, and that's really all you have to go off of, because that's really all that matters, the here and now. So it's whatever it is, it will be. But today, this is who we are and what's going on. And this is what it takes to win at Oklahoma this Friday. So we got to focus and concentrate on that.
Let me bring it full circle to Oklahoma. Last question here, and I want to go back in time again, but I think you're going to enjoy talking about this. I want to ask you about an Alabama legend that I don't think people talk about nearly enough, someone who had a career day in that Oklahoma game in 2002. What can you tell me about Lane Bearden?
Lane's one of my best friends. Tough as nails. Let's see here. It was a couple weeks later he tore his ACL. But I remember he had an onside kick that he recovered. And you think about it, you have to go back to the year before that to where we're playing South Carolina. And Lou Holtz was the coach at that time. And they had one dude on their front line that would always go and hit the kicker. Most kickers are 140 pounds and they're 5'8", right? Lane's not. He's 6'2", 200 plus pounds. He was a receiver in high school with me, played soccer, but played soccer like football, just beat everybody up. Had an older brother, so he's tough as nails. And that South Carolina dude on the opening kickoff comes out there and hits him and quickly realized he bit off a little bit more than he could chew as Lane took him to the ground, ripped his helmet off, and they didn't try that again. So he had another onside kick, I want to say, at some point. He had a fake field goal where he ran it in or threw it for a touchdown. A heck of a competitor, not scared of contact, and just wanted to win and would do anything to win. Yeah, outstanding player. Great guy.
And you mentioned tore his ACL, kept punting after he tore his ACL. Insane.
Yeah.
Like, Tyler, in my last follow-up to that is, like, you mentioned toughness, right? You mentioned Franchione being tough on you guys. I think of you as a player who probably could have played in any era of football, somebody who could drop back and throw from the pocket, but obviously you run the option. You're getting hit on every single play. You ever watch the game today and, like, say back in my day and think these guys don't know what toughness is, that kind of thing? Like, how do you view today's game compared to what you were doing?
We all do that. The truth of the matter is they're bigger now and they're a lot faster than they probably used to be. I got my son's a senior in high school who played tight end, and we get to watching film, and I'd show him a picture of Al Wilson, who played middle linebacker for Tennessee, who's an incredible player. And he goes, "Look how big his pads are, Dad. He's really not that big. His pads are just huge." I said, "Son, they had to be big because we were knocking the piss out of each other, and so they had to be bigger." He goes, "Y'all weren't that good." So it's a generational thing. You know, you think about how they played in the '60s. Everything was 3 feet off the ground or lower. There's the only way you could play the game. Then it's gotten higher and higher. They're much more complex in what they're doing now, what's being asked of them. And they're more versatile in what they can do. Think about Alabama offensive line. You have pretty much every position at some point during the game is going to pull and get around the edge. That used to never happen. You never pulled a center back in the day. You'd only pull guards, and they would never have to go outside the tackle box. And if they did, they were just kicking somebody out. So the game is much more complex now than it used to be. Coaches are better. They're more fundamental. They're more precise in what they do because they spend so much time. It's year round now, as opposed to what we did back in the day where we weren't good enough to do anything they're doing now. It was just, who can be the tougher dude? Let's bang heads for 90 plays.
Just trying to give credit where it's due, man. I mean,
it's funny though, because Charlie Stubbs under Mike DuBose, real quick. Charlie Stubbs under Mike DuBose came in to be our offensive coordinator, and the game had started to change in the late 90s. To where his philosophy was he wanted to win football games 30-27, 35-28. And Coach DuBose, coming from that old school, he wanted to win games 17-14, 13-10. They wanted to play much more conservative, field position, strong defense, not put the ball in harm's way, ball control. And so you started seeing the evolution even back in the 90s, and then it has exponentially, changed over the last 20-25 years.
The game evolves, to say the least. But like I said, put Tyler Watts in any era, he's going to play ball. Hey, he is Tyler Watts, color commentator on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, one of the great Alabama quarterbacks, certainly of my lifetime, number 14, the pride of Pelham. Tyler, thank you so much.
Thank y'all for having me.